In 1998, Bonnie Baker, a 47-year-old resident of Denver, Colorado, was living with her boyfriend, Crespin Nene Perez. Bonnie was employed at a restaurant in Morrison, Colorado. In June of that year, the couple attended a celebration with friends in honor of Bonnie's recent pay raise. During the festivities, Crespin became upset when he saw Bonnie dancing with others, prompting them to leave the gathering together. Before departing, Bonnie expressed to a friend, "It would be better if I just go now, or it'd be worse." Later that evening, a 911 call was made, reporting that a woman had been found deceased in her apartment on West Louisiana Avenue. The caller alleged that Crespin was responsible and was en route to Mexico with Bonnie's body in the trunk of his vehicle, intending to dispose of it along the way. Authorities promptly arrived at the couple's shared apartment, where they discovered shattered glass and overturned furniture. The neighbor who made the call recounted that Crespin had ominously stated, "Something bad happened to us. You will never have to see Bonnie again because I'm going to make her disappear." This led investigators to conclude that an argument had escalated, resulting in Bonnie's tragic death at the hands of Crespin. Following the incident, he reportedly placed her body in his car and fled towards Mexico, as described by the neighbor. Despite efforts to locate either Bonnie or Crespin, they were unsuccessful. The neighbor provided a description of Crespin's vehicle, which was later identified in a crash near Globe, Arizona, 2 days later. Although the driver escaped, a witness recognized Crespin from a photo lineup. The vehicle was impounded, and blood evidence was collected from the trunk. In July 1999, over a year after Bonnie's disappearance, 2 boys on horseback in Navajo territory near Manuelito, New Mexico, stumbled upon a human skull, leading the Navajo Nation tribal police to uncover additional skeletal remains in the vicinity. An autopsy did not succeed in identifying the individual, yet it was established that the remains were those of a female. These remains were subsequently transferred to the New Mexico office of the medical investigator for safekeeping until advancements in DNA technology would allow for further analysis. By October 2012, significant progress had been made in DNA technology. Police detective Kenneth Klaus, who had been dedicated to Bonnie's case since 1998, reached out to an agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigation in New Mexico to discuss her mysterious disappearance. The agent recalled the female remains discovered in 1999 and suspected they might belong to Bonnie. DNA samples from the skeletal remains were sent to Denver, where they were successfully matched with samples from Bonnie. In 2013, investigators concluded that sufficient evidence existed to charge Crespin. However, he was residing in Mexico at that time, making his extradition to Colorado a complex endeavor. It took 7 years to successfully return him to the United States. In May 2020, Crespin, along with several other fugitives, was surrendered to American authorities by the Mexican government. Preliminary hearings commenced, during which Crespin's family provided testimony regarding his violent behavior. Currently, there is no update on the trial's schedule, but it is believed that investigators have amassed enough evidence to ensure a conviction. Hidden beneath the surface of the mystery surrounding Mary Kathleen Schaas lies a tapestry of dark secrets. A gifted artist whose vibrant life was tragically extinguished on a fateful February day in 1974, Mary's story is one of both talent and tragedy. A violent encounter with a stranger left an enduring enigma that lingered for nearly 50 years. While pursuing her artistic dreams through hitchhiking, her life was abruptly ended, a mystery that remained unsolved until recent forensic advancements finally illuminated the truth. Born on November 4, 1948, in the charming city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mary was the daughter of Arnold Benjamin Schaas and Louise Catherine Larson Schaas. From a young age, she radiated creativity and a spirited personality, which propelled her to the University of Minnesota, where she graduated with honors. A remarkable artist and an accomplished equestrian, Mary was a beacon of promise and potential, cherished by all who knew her for her artistic brilliance and compassionate heart. However, on February 15, 1974, tragedy struck. At the tender age of 25, Mary was discovered lifeless near an intersection in Spring Brook, Wisconsin, leaving her family and friends in a state of disbelief and sorrow. The grim determination of homicide was swiftly assigned to her death, deepening the anguish of those who loved her. The initial investigation revealed that Mary had been hitchhiking to an art exhibition in Chicago on that ill-fated day, a detail that provided a slender yet crucial lead in piecing together the events leading to her demise. Unfortunately, the absence of witnesses and substantial evidence stymied progress, and despite the relentless efforts of law enforcement, the case grew cold. For decades, detectives from various agencies dedicated themselves to unraveling the truth behind Mary's tragic end, pursuing countless leads and tips in the hope of finally achieving justice for a life so cruelly interrupted. Interviews were conducted with individuals who may have possessed knowledge regarding the circumstances surrounding her untimely demise. Despite these diligent inquiries, no credible suspects emerged. The absence of significant evidence left the case in a state of stagnation, and the pursuit of justice for Mary appeared increasingly elusive. Over the years, her case continued to captivate those resolute in their quest for answers. Law enforcement periodically revisited the evidence, harnessing the advancements in forensic technology. Yet despite their unwavering efforts, no significant breakthroughs materialized until the recent emergence of genetic genealogy, which opened a promising new pathway for investigation. In a determined pursuit of justice, the Dunn County Sheriff's Office forged a partnership with a team of genetic genealogists from Ramapo College in New Jersey. This collaboration centered on the meticulous analysis of DNA evidence gathered from the crime scene, including a crucial artifact, a hat discovered near Mary's remains. In November 2024, the genetic analysis yielded an astonishing breakthrough. Utilizing cutting-edge forensic techniques, the team identified a suspect in this decades-old mystery, 84-year-old John Keith Miller. The pivotal moment arrived when investigators found a hair on the hat left at the scene. DNA extracted from this hair matched Miller unequivocally, establishing a direct link to the homicide. The hat, later confirmed to be Miller's, became an instrumental piece of evidence in unraveling the enigma of Mary's tragic fate. Equipped with this newfound evidence, authorities located Miller in his apartment in Owatonna, Minnesota. After years of ambiguity and lingering questions, investigators finally had the chance to confront the individual responsible for Mary's death. During their interrogation, Miller confessed to his involvement in the 1974 homicide, marking a significant turning point in a case that had remained unresolved for nearly 5 decades. Throughout his interview, Miller recounted chilling details regarding the events that led to Mary's tragic end. Miller's criminal complaint reveals that he picked up a young hitchhiker en route to an art exhibition in Chicago. Following this seemingly innocuous encounter, he made inappropriate advances, soliciting sexual contact from Mary. When she declined his propositions, his demeanor shifted dramatically, culminating in a violent outburst. In a fit of rage, he retrieved a knife from within the vehicle and fatally stabbed her in the back, inflicting multiple wounds that underscored the brutality of the assault. Although Miller has confessed to the crime, a critical piece of evidence, the murder weapon, remains missing, complicating the case further. Nevertheless, his admission, coupled with DNA evidence, has equipped law enforcement with sufficient grounds to file charges against him. Miller now faces a first-degree homicide charge for the tragic death of Mary Kathleen Schaas in 1974. He is currently detained in Steele County, Minnesota, as legal proceedings commence. Authorities are actively working to facilitate his extradition to Dunn County, Wisconsin, where the heinous act occurred and where he will face trial. For the dedicated investigators who have labored on this case, Miller's arrest signifies the fruition of years of unwavering commitment. As he awaits extradition, Mary's family and the community that grieved her loss inch closer to the justice they seek. The family intends to hold a press conference shortly, expressing their heartfelt appreciation to law enforcement for their tireless efforts. Clara Gibbs, a 31-year-old resident of Fort Myers, Florida, found herself in a challenging situation in 1984. Originally hailing from Tampa, she had relocated to Fort Myers in 1979. Unfortunately, circumstances led her to a life of hardship, and she began working as a prostitute, adopting the name Coco in her profession. On the fateful day of June 26, 1984, local authorities responded to reports of gunfire near Palm Beach Avenue and Lincoln Boulevard, where they discovered Claritha's lifeless body at 2831 Lincoln Boulevard, the victim of a fatal shooting. At the scene, investigators uncovered a rag containing the suspect's DNA. However, the technology for DNA testing was not yet prevalent or sophisticated. Eyewitnesses recounted seeing Claritha enter a two-tone vehicle, likely a pickup truck, just moments before the gunshot rang out. The driver was described as a white male in his 30s, with brown or dark blonde hair, a slender physique, standing approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall and possessing a pale complexion. Despite this vivid description, the authorities struggled to identify the suspect. The case garnered renewed attention in a special feature in the September 1994 issue of The News Press, which highlighted 16 unsolved murders of prostitutes in the Fort Myers area over the past 2 decades. In January 2017, the Cold Case Unit of the Fort Myers Police Department submitted the DNA evidence from the rag to DNA Labs International for advanced testing. This effort yielded a complete DNA profile which was subsequently entered into the Combined DNA Index System, the FBI's national DNA database, yet it failed to match any known samples. In March 2019, investigators sought the expertise of Parabon Nanolabs to aid in the investigation. Utilizing their Parabon snapshot service, they developed a profile through genealogical research. Ultimately, on June 22, 2020, Parabon Nanolabs finalized their report, revealing a connection between the DNA profile and a 65-year-old man named James Glenn Drinan, residing in Okeechobee, Florida. He resided in the picturesque town of Okeechobee, Florida. As investigators delved into the case, they discovered that James had been living in Lee County, Florida, at the time of the tragic event. Fort Myers, a prominent city within Lee County, became a focal point in their inquiries. To establish James's connection to the untimely demise of Claritha, investigators meticulously sifted through his discarded refuse on July 27, 2020, ultimately retrieving a sample of his DNA. This evidence was forwarded to DNA Labs International, where it was confirmed to correspond with the DNA collected from the crime scene on the fateful night of Claritha's death. On January 13, 2021, investigators reached out to James in Okeechobee, Florida. During their dialogue, he made a startling admission, confessing to the fatal shooting of Claritha. James recounted that he had been employed as a mechanic in the area and had engaged Claritha's services. He alleged that she had brandished a firearm in an attempt to rob him, leading to a violent struggle in which Claritha was shot. Following the incident, James fled the scene, discarding the weapon from his truck's window. Tragically, just 5 days after his confession, on January 18, 2021, James passed away at his residence, with no further details released regarding the circumstances of his death. Nevertheless, his confession provided the Fort Myers Police Department with the closure needed to resolve the case. Cynthia Hampton, Claretha's sister, residing in Cape Coral, Florida, expressed her astonishment upon being contacted by the police regarding the investigation. She remarked, "It brings a sense of relief to finally know who was responsible for Claretha's death." The Fort Myers Police Department released a statement heralding the case as a prime example of traditional investigative techniques enhanced by modern technological advancements. They reaffirmed their dedication to solving cold cases and delivering justice to grieving families. Chief Derek Diggs emphasized the department's commitment to leveraging every resource and technological innovation available to bring resolution to such cases. In our next narrative, we find ourselves in Anchorage, the largest city in Alaska, nestled in the picturesque south-central region of the state. This vibrant metropolis, embraced by the majestic Chugach Mountains and shimmering glaciers, is renowned for its exquisite culinary offerings and exceptional libations, making it a coveted destination for discerning travelers worldwide. Yet, even amidst this lively urban landscape, darkness lurked. On a balmy day in 1994, Anchorage basked under a radiant sun, the azure sky adorned with wisps of clouds, while a gentle breeze whispered through the trees. A group of children, from toddlers to pre-teens, reveled in play at a local park, their laughter echoing in the air. Nearby, parents and guardians engaged in light-hearted conversation, blissfully unaware of the lurking menace. Tragically, a 5-year-old girl became the unsuspecting victim of this hidden predator. The man, later revealed to be Lawrence Andrew Lekanoff, emerged from the shadows, seizing the child and dragging her to a secluded area of the park where he committed an unspeakable act. After this heinous crime, he vanished into the ether, leaving the innocent girl to suffer. For reasons of privacy, her identity remains undisclosed, and details surrounding the case are scarce. The Anchorage community was left in a state of shock and fear, grappling with the reality that such a horrific act could unfold in broad daylight. Authorities were resolute in their pursuit of justice, yet they were hampered by a lack of leads, relying solely on the evidence collected from the victim. Numerous interviews were conducted, but each inquiry led to a dead end. As the years passed, the case languished within the Anchorage Police Department, while the young girl grew up, burdened by the unimaginable trauma of her experience. Meanwhile, the elusive perpetrator, Lawrence Andrew Lekanoff, managed to evade capture for over 2 decades, leaving a haunting shadow over the city. In 2016, a substantial federal grant exceeding $1 million from the U.S. Department of Justice facilitated the examination of sexual assault kits throughout Alaska. Approximately 3,000 untested kits, gathered by 47 police departments since the mid-1990s, were dispatched for analysis. The testing of the kit associated with this particular case ultimately revealed DNA evidence that matched a suspect, Lawrence Andrew Lekanoff. The Cold Case Unit of the Anchorage Police Department revived the investigation, and the Office of Special Prosecutions within the Department of Law presented the findings to a grand jury. On February 27, 2003, the 52-year-old Lekanoff was apprehended in the lower 48, awaiting extradition to Alaska. At the time of the assault on the 5-year-old girl, he was merely 23 years old. Records indicate that Lekanoff, who at one point was listed as homeless and residing in the woods of Muldoon, had a troubling history of similar offences. In 1996, he faced arrest for the abuse of a 6-year-old girl at Cheney Lake. Additionally, there was an incident where he allegedly attempted to molest a 4-year-old girl, although that charge was dismissed as part of a plea agreement. During his sentencing in 1996, Lekanoff received a 12-year prison term, with 4 years suspended. The presiding judge expressed grave concerns regarding his alarming history of child abuse, including a prior conviction for the sexual assault of a young girl, predicting that Lekhanov would likely remain a persistent danger to the community. In subsequent years, public records reveal that he completed his sentence and departed Alaska. However, he was later convicted for failing to register as a sex offender in both Montana and Colorado, a requirement stemming from his 1996 conviction in Anchorage. Notably, Lawrence Andrew Lekhanov was not the first individual to be arrested and charged following the testing of unprocessed sexual assault kits from local law enforcement agencies in Alaska. At least 2 other arrests occurred before his. Alaska's esteemed cold case prosecutor, Aaron McCarthy, articulated that the recent indictment conveys a significant message. These cases remain deserving of our attention, regardless of the time elapsed. Many of these cases linger in the memories of Alaskan communities, McCarthy remarked. Some will be etched in memory forever, and thus we must not allow them to fade from our consciousness. The young girl who endured Lekhanov's assault in 1994 has now blossomed into her early 30s. While McCarthy refrained from discussing the woman to honor her privacy, she emphasized that the resolution of a cold case can bestow a profound sense of peace upon survivors. Victims often grapple with the feeling that their plight went unnoticed or unaddressed, which is far from the truth, McCarthy explained. There exists a sense of validation. For those who have long been unaware of their assailant's identity, discovering who that person is can bring solace, alleviating the constant fear of looking over their shoulders. The sentencing of Lawrence Lekhanov is forthcoming, with a potential sentence of up to 30 years if convicted. While this case edges closer to justice, countless children worldwide continue to endure similar horrors at this very moment. The mere thought of a child being subjected to such vile acts is enough to shatter one's heart into countless fragments. It is a despicable crime that strips away a child's innocence, leaving behind deep physical, emotional, and psychological scars that may endure for a lifetime. It is imperative that we, as a society, take decisive measures to prevent such atrocities and extend our support and compassion to those who have suffered.